I would love to live healthfully to 100 and join that elite group of centenarians. Wouldn't you? But here's the problem. I don't live in a blue zone. I don't live in Sardinia or in Okinawa, Japan. I live in Toronto, Canada, and the only thing blue is your hands in the middle of February. But is all lost? No, it's not. Join me today where we're going to take it through the things that we need to do, and a lot of them we already do, to live to be 100. So not only do I not live in the blue zone, is that going to be the deciding factor? What about genetics? Maybe supersonic genetics are going to make the difference. Well, I don't know that my genetics are that really impressive either. My dad died at 64, but there's still a whole lot more that we can do. Genetics only account for 25 to 30% of our life expectancy. So what can we do? There's a whole lot. Research has shown that it really comes down to 4 basic principles that we need to address. And most of them we already do, I'm sure you at home, because I know that I do. So the first thing, exercise. Let's talk about exercise. This does not mean we all have to join a gym and start pumping weights and become IFBB pros. That is not what it's all about. First and foremost, and I know maybe this is like, we've already heard this so many times, walk, 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 walk. If there's one thing that you can do that can change your life, it is walking. So if you have the ability to walk, start walking. And it's much better to walk 15 to 20 minutes a day than to wait until Sunday and walk for 2 hours. That's not the idea. We need some strength training, but it doesn't have to be giant dumbbells. If you can get yourself a pair of dumbbells from Walmart or whatever, that's great. So I'm not just talking about hanging out in the gym all the time. I'm talking about being active in your everyday life. Maybe you're out gardening. Maybe you have a lot of chores to do in your house. Maybe you swim. Maybe you have a pond in your backyard. Do something and stay active. This is something that all the centenarians have agreed upon. Don't get lulled into those anecdotal things where somebody says, there's a lady I read about who is 100 who eats custard tarts every day. There's another gentleman that swears by his nightly nightcap of a bourbon. So, you know, those anecdotal things, as much as they sound great, forget about it. Let's go with the science. Another aspect that comes into play is our environment. And I know this is a tricky one because it's pretty hard to change our environment most of the time. So I live in the suburbs, not right downtown. That's a good thing. If you're downtown, what are you going to do? Well, at least you can stay away from secondhand smoke. Try to stay away from the exhaust fumes. That is a pretty difficult one, but just keep your eyes open for areas where maybe you can be in a little bit better of an air quality and just avoid those ones that are really negatively going to impact your health. Let's move along to diet. What can we do with our diet? The number one thing that you can add to your diet that is really going to make a difference? Beans. Who knew? Beans are something that all of the people in the blue zones eat. Beans are a really easy addition to so many of the foods that we eat all of the time. In your salads, in your soups, in your sandwiches, in potatoes, in so many different things. So add some beans. If there's one thing that we can reduce from our diet, even just a little bit, it is animal-based proteins. Try to add plant-based proteins. Even, you know, when they came up with that Taco Tuesdays, try to add tofu. Try to swap out some of the red meat for some other types of protein in your diet. That's really going to make a difference. Don't overeat. Many people say that they stop eating when they're 80% full. I don't really know how you can gauge that. I haven't seen the tank level inside me, but don't overeat. Just stop. Don't stuff yourself. Much better to leave a little bit of room on the top and not overdo it. Enjoy alcohol in moderation. Surprisingly to me, many of the people that live to be 100 do enjoy alcohol in moderation. Never more than 1 or 2 drinks in a day, but I was surprised by that actually. I was thinking that really it was going to be the abstainers that were much higher, but not the case. But again, the key with everything, moderation. On a positive front, the number of centenarians is increasing steadily. Right now in 2024, we have 0.03% of the population at age 100 or more, but they're expecting that in 30 years, by 2054, we will have 0.1%. That's more than triple the number of centenarians in that 30-year period. Another fun fact, especially for us girls, 85% of centenarians are women, 15% for the other guy. So just because I told you how easy it is to throw beans into recipes, I thought I'd better put my money where my mouth is. I had some sweet potatoes out for dinner, and I just kind of came up with this concoction, so we're gonna make it together. I'm gonna do stuffed sweet potatoes so I've already baked these for an hour, so they're nice and soft, and I'm going to take out the flesh, and I'm gonna mix it with some black beans, some cilantro, if you like cilantro, some jalapeno, and then I've got some nice kind of Mexican spices like smoked paprika, a little bit of chipotle powder, and some cumin, and a little bit of onion powder. We're gonna mix that all up and put it back into our sweet potato. It's really nice and juicy. Really, to mash it takes nothing. If you have a drier sweet potato, then put a good little squeeze of lime into it. So we're gonna throw in some cilantro, maybe just a couple tablespoons of cilantro, maybe a tablespoon or so of chopped jalapeno. Then, whoops, so about a half a teaspoon of the smoked paprika. And about the same of the chipotle, a little bit less, maybe a quarter. Smells good, nice and smoky. Some pepper. Half teaspoon of onion powder. Half teaspoon of cumin. We're gonna be singing Olé Olé. Okay, and I have a nice heaping half cup of our black beans. We maybe can add a little bit more, but let's just mix it up first. Let me tell you, this smells really delicious. Really good. How easy is that? And you know, this is a great meal prep also to bring to work, even though I'm gonna top it up, and I'll show you that you can do that a little bit separately if you're gonna bring it to work. So I'm just going to put this back in because for me, the best part, or one of the best parts about a sweet potato is the skin. I love the skin of a potato. Okay, so look at all that flavor that we have added to that sweet potato. Delicious, but we're not done yet. So because we're gonna want maybe a bit more of a protein boost than that, we can just, you know, yogurt doesn't just have to be for fruit. Like it can do savory too. It's multifunctional. So we put a big, good dollop of Greek yogurt or the skyr, and I like to top it with a bit of the tahini. Now, if you wanted to take one of these to work, just put the yogurt in a separate container so that you can put it on top when you're there. And look, you've got your protein, you've got your beans that we're trying to add in, your wonderful sweet potato, you've got some greens, and that is a delicious meal. So you might want a bit of olive oil on there. That is really delicious. And look at how simple it was. So we've talked about what we must add to our diet. We've talked about what must come back a little bit from our diet. And we've talked about fitness and being active in our lifestyle. But what about social fitness? That is very important. And that goes on to the other aspect that is part of the whole picture that we want to look at in order to stay healthy and maybe even live to be 100. And all of the centenarians, that's a hard one, is the social connections. Family, if you have friends, community, being part of something. And sometimes that can be really, really difficult for many of us. That, you know what, we may be able to exercise and stay active, we may be on top of our diet, but what about those social connections? What about being out and meeting somebody and just chatting on the street? What about being part of a group or being part of a club? These types of things, a sense of belonging and a sense of purpose, is something that comes up over and over and over again in all of the research that I read. I read some articles and actually listened to a couple of podcasts with a very, very fun, informative doctor, Dr. Thomas Pearl out of Boston University. And He is an expert on centenarians and has been studying them for many years. And interestingly, when he started looking at them, he thought that he was going to be looking at old, frail, sick people. And he was shocked when he came to see these centenarians and super centenarians. Those are the ones that live over 110. He soon learned that it was not the older you get, the sicker you are. It's more the older you get, the healthier you've been. And how true is that? Somehow, these people have been able to slow the aging process so that a lot of the things that may be setting upon people early in their life, in their 40s and 50s, these people seemingly have lived through that and have come out on the other end. Positivity, a good mindset, be happy. Sometimes you just got to even fake it till you make it. Getting back to genetics for a minute, we're not just talking about genetics on a molecular level, because that we really can't change. But what about genetics behavioral? I'm going to call it behavioral genetics, because you do what your parents did and they did what their parents did, and you all live in this bubble of a lifestyle that maybe is not optimal. So did your parents smoke, so you smoke? Are they obese, so you're obese? You know, there's that to look out to. Maybe there's nothing really molecular that is the issue, but your lifestyle, your environment in that realm of things could be having a big impact on you. So take a look at those things as well. Dr. Pearl says that genetics, to get to 90, when you're getting to the age of 90, only 30% of that is genetics and 70% is our lifestyle and our diet and all these things that we've been talking about today. But when you're over 102, then it flips. Then it's 70% genetics and 30% lifestyle. But we don't really have to worry about that until we reach 102, do we? Let's try to put some of these things into play early. Some of the new science that Dr. Pearl is looking at in Boston University are the signature, the genetic fingerprints that maybe some of these centenarians have, and to see if those can help us as well. The other thing they're looking at is our gut microbiome, and we've all talked about that before, if you remember my fermented food video. So that's something that even there, in those studies, they're looking at the relationship keeping us healthy with those type of dietary supplements. Dr. Pearl also has developed a lifespan calculator, and he has a website, and I'm going to put that on the screen. And I suggest you try it because it's fun, and I did it too, and it only takes about 10 minutes and asks you health questions and family questions and lifestyle questions, and it spits out a number of your suggested lifespan. And I'm pretty happy with mine because apparently I'm going to live to be 104. So I don't think that you can sue him later if it doesn't work out, but nonetheless. And they also give you suggestions on if there's things there that may be impacting that you might be able to change. And you can go back then, and if you've made changes, see if the age calculator has changed and given you a different number. But it's kind of a fun thing to do. There's a Tibetan proverb that I think is the perfect way to wrap up this video, and I hope that's something we can all live by. And they say that the secret to living well and longer is to eat half, walk double, laugh triple, and love without measure. I think those are words to live by, maybe even to 100.